Welcome to Tech Photo Blog. This is episode number 72. This week is going to be a revisit of the water droplets I did in the previous episode. So, I was getting nice water droplet photos last time, but one problem I had was that I wanted to have sort of taller water droplets, and I wasn't able to get them over, an inch or two in height. And various people on the forums sent in suggestions on how to improve that. And basically what it turned out to be was I used the same mixture of this xanthan gum, and I used about 1 tablespoon per 4 cups of water. Put that in the blender to mix it. I run it through filters just like last time, and then I dilute that at about 2 to 1 with regular water. All of that's described in the last video, so I kept that the same. The difference this time is that I'm using a different detergent to reduce the surface tension of the water, and I'm using this jet dry. So this is just a way of helping dry your dishes in your dishwasher. You put this on, and the water runs off your clean dishes, and that's kind of what we wanted to do, right? You're reducing the surface tension of the water. In that case, we want to reduce the surface tension. Now, the important part is this does not go into both the base reservoir and into the valve sensor. This only goes into the base reservoir. I tried putting this into the valve sensor, kind of curious what it would do, and what it does is it reduces the surface tension of the droplet, but what that causes is that it doesn't actually create like a little fountain, like a string. What it does is it shoots little droplets out of the top, and those droplets go really, really far, but it isn't very photogenic, and it's quite hard to get a collision because these droplets are kind of shooting out at slightly different angles, and there's no water. There's no sort of water fount. So the jet dry or dishwasher, what do they call it? Rinse aid. They call this a rinse aid for dishwashers. So that only goes into the base reservoir, and this xanthan gum goes into both the sensor, which is creating the droplets, and into the base reservoir. Now, in addition to that, I had to play around a lot with the droplet size, and I ended up using a droplet size of around 50, which is much larger than the 3, 4, or 5 I was using before. And that's what, that big droplet really creates a really high droplet, and it's actually something I had to play around with quite a bit to find the right value, and it changes based on liquid, so you may need to adjust the size until you can sort of find that. And you can do that experimentation with a single droplet, and it's pretty easy to find what size creates that really tall fountain of a shot. You can create the same effect by having 2 droplets back to back. And some people claim that that's the only way to get a tall droplet, but I had very similar results from 1 big drop versus 2 little drops following each other. So you'd go like drop, and then right after that drop. And they said, the claim was that the first one creates an indentation, and the second one really pushes things down further, and then therefore the spout is higher. And that made sense to me. But like I said, in practice, one big drop seemed to get the same effect as the 2 small drops. So I ended up going with the 1 drop for all of my photos because that's just a bit easier to work with. One additional thing I wanted to talk about is you should always clean out your valve sensors after you're done using them. But if you don't, or if you just use them a whole lot, sometimes they get a little bit gummed up, and usually the way that I fix them is just running really hot water into this tube and then purging the valve a bunch of times, just, you know, kind of letting the water out. I've already taken out the nozzle here, so that's missing. But that's the easiest way to clean them out, and it usually works. It's just important to run a lot of water through it and make sure that water's pretty hot. That'll usually clean out any gumminess that's stuck in the valve. But if that does not work, then it's actually really easy to take apart these valves. So you just undo that nut, and I've already unstuck this one so it's easier, but you can definitely unstick it like that. It makes it easier to work with here. And then you take this off. There's really not very many pieces here, so, and they don't go back together in the wrong order, so can't really mess it up too much. And then after that, there's these 2 screws to take out. Then you can move this plate, and at that point there's sort of this center piece. You can keep that together, or if it comes apart, there's not many pieces here, and that's pretty much all there is. So this part in here, there's that little hole that could get gummed up. You could clean that out. Again, you probably just boil this whole metal piece in some hot water on the stove to really clean it out. You just don't want to boil this this part because it has an O-ring on it. I'm not sure what temperature that would be rated to, but this is all metal, this piece, so you can clean that out with just some boiling water. And that's probably where the problem is. If that doesn't clean it, there's just some plastic pieces here that need to be cleaned, and you can actually unscrew this like that, and then this is all just plastic and a little bit of metal, so again you can boil this piece so to clean it out, or you can use like a really soft brush and get it in there if you have any gum that needs to get out. And then, you know, after that, it's really easy to put back together. You just put these pieces back together, put that in there. You put this metal plate on, screw in the screws. I won't do that to save a little bit of time here. But then after those screws are in, you put this piece back on, put the nut on, and it's all back together. It's super easy to clean it out yourself if it does get gummed up, but again, try out the hot water first, because just running hot water through it will usually clear out any gumminess you've put in the valve. And in order to prevent this kind of problem, just flush it out with you know, pure water after you're done using it, and let it dry before packing it away. So here's the setup I'm using this week. It's very similar to the setup I was using in the previous episode, but you've got the camera there, and that's set to appropriate ISO speed. The aperture is usually around f11 to f22. We've got the camera axe there, which is connected to the multi-flash board. I've got, this week I've moved the flashes to behind this diffuser just to give a different look. I've got one flash in front of it. I turn this one on and off. Kind of gives a little bit different look. Then up here's the actual valve sensor. So that's pretty much the setup. There's one thing I wanted to show with this setup, and that's trying to find the right size. I said that's a little tricky. So right now I've got a drop size of 40, and if I set this off, this isn't gonna show up on film, but we're not actually trying to I'm not actually trying to show a droplet here. All I'm actually trying to show, or trying to present to you, is the sound of the drop. So 40 is a pretty good size drop to create that long water spout. So you can see that's pretty quiet. And if I increase, I'm going to just now increase the size to something that I know is too big, so I'll go up to a size of 70. And here you can sort of hear there's this splashing sound, and that's usually a pretty good indication that your droplet's a little bit too big. So what I actually am doing now is I'll usually set it to a size where I can hear that splash, and then I back off a little bit, make it a little bit smaller size till that goes away, and then that's usually a pretty good size to use to create a really tall water spout with the droplets. So now I'll show you some photos that I've taken with this setup, and thanks for watching.